So the conflict here, as I see it, is why was Bitcoin originally made? From what I have, what's been portrayed, right? It was created as a tool of financial freedom to prevent fiscal irresponsibility on the part of central banks and also commercial banks as a response to things like the 2008 financial crisis. Okay. So what happens when the same powers that Bitcoin was created to thwart start using it to continue their bad behavior?
Hey guys, welcome back to Everyday Finance. In this video, Whitney Webb discuss about Bitcoin. According to Whitney Webb, from Whitney Webb point of view, the problem is, why was at first Bitcoin? Let you know from Whitney have. What's been shown, it was made as a tool of financial freedom to stop fiscal as a result of events like the 2008 financial crisis. Both state banks and commercial banks have been careless the banking crisis. So what happens when the same people who made Bitcoin, made to stop them, start using it to keep going when they act badly? Is it still a way to get financial freedom, or has it changed into something else? Something used by the people it was made to fight real talk about. This needs to happen in the Bitcoin space, and it is happening to some extent, some might say not enough. Whitney Webb think a lot of people get excited when they think about what will happen if Bitcoin goes above $200,000, and lots of things Whitney Webb discuss, so please watch the video to end, and share this video, and subscribe our channel Everyday Finance. Thanks.
Winning, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it under those metrics. I certainly think that the big commercial banks and potentially, the financial arm of the US government think they can use Bitcoin for something that benefits them. Just to, before I go any further, I think it's pretty clear to everyone that there's a big differentiation, even from the US government's perspective, between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, right? Gary Gensler of the SEC refers to Bitcoin as a commodity, but every other cryptocurrency is a security from the SEC's perspective. That's pretty significant. So seeing Bitcoin as this commodity from the SEC's perspective, the only commodity in the digital currency space, they obviously want to use that to their benefit if they can, and it seems like they probably can and will. Yeah. So the conflict here, as I see it, is why was Bitcoin originally made? From what I have, what's been portrayed, right? It was created as a tool of financial freedom to prevent fiscal irresponsibility on the part of central banks and also commercial banks as a response to things like the 2008 financial crisis. Okay. So what happens when the same powers that Bitcoin was created to thwart start using it to continue their bad behavior? Is it still a tool for financial freedom then, or has it become a tool of the same people it was created to fight against? This is a real discussion that needs to happen in the Bitcoin space. It is happening to a degree, arguably not enough. I think a lot of people can get kind of googly-eyed thinking oh, wow, what if Bitcoin goes above $200,000? And all of this stuff, okay, well, it's great that you might have, a higher net worth, but in a lot of the cases where Bitcoin would be projected to reach astronomical sums, that means the dollar and other currencies widely in use become insanely devalued. So okay, if a loaf of bread is worth $300 because helicopter money in the US has happened and it's hyperinflation, and you have Bitcoin, you might have a lot of, it looks like you have a lot of money in your account, but in terms of purchasing power, you basically have the same lifestyle you have now, but everyone else around you is dirt poor and has nothing. Is that a scenario to be cheered on? I don't think so. Bitcoin's supposed to be ideal money, right? And a tool of financial freedom. And if we let the people that have run this insane monetary casino for decades use Bitcoin for their ends, Bitcoin will cease to be that.
People need to be very aware of these attempts to use Bitcoin for bad reasons. People kind of have to pick a side here about things like the original idea behind Bitcoin. So Whitney Webb think you're going to fight to keep Bitcoin a way for everyone to get financial freedom and keep it as the best money ever, to protect yourself from central bank and commercial bank fraud? Or are you going to let those same central and commercial banks do it? The banks use it for their own purposes and build it into their scheme for controlling all of your money. It's pretty simple to decide which side to support. However, some people are still thinking, oh, the idea of becoming a millionaire sounds great, but what if you want to keep living the way you do now? It costs $1 million to imagine hyperinflation that's also not great. And you know, if all of you can make deals and do all the other stuff, you might have more money, but you know how the system works. They want you to commit a thought crime, and the doji will just take all your Bitcoin. Just like they do with a lot of other people. Let's back to the Whitney Webb interview.
Period. I also think there's a side effort too, and I think it's very obvious, or should be very obvious to people in the space, to criminalize privacy enhancing tools for Bitcoin transactions. They want Bitcoin transactions, those that they allow to happen, to be completely surveillable. They don't want financial privacy, which is part of this push for bank issued stable coins and deposit tokens and CBDCs, is all about knowing everything about the flow of money. You know, how the public spends their money. They don't want you to spend $1 and them not know about it, you know? So, I mean, that's essentially where it's headed. And to use Bitcoin, they want it to go in that direction as well. So, you know, it's very likely, like, in the event that like the dollar hyperinflates, like, you know, people have made the case that like maybe Bitcoin will be used as a reserve asset to keep the dollar from completely imploding. You know, like if the US is going to default on its debt and we're like, what, at like 34 trillion now? I mean, it's like completely insane, and it's not like going to be addressed, the debt problem. So obviously it will explode at some point. So, I mean, people have to be very cognizant of like these efforts to use Bitcoin for ends that are like not good in terms of like the original ethos of Bitcoin. So people kind of have in my opinion, have to pick a side here about like, are you going to fight to keep Bitcoin a tool for financial freedom for everybody, and to keep it being like ideal money to as a hedge against central bank and commercial bank malfeasance? Or are you going to let those same central and commercial banks use it for their ends and incorporate it into their system of complete financial control? I think it's very easy to choose what side to be on there. But some people, again, you know, are like, ooh, the prospect of being a millionaire sounds great. But like, if you know, maintain the lifestyle you have now in a hyperinflation scenario costs $1 million, I mean, that's not great either. And, you know, if all your transactions are surveillable and all of the stuff, I mean, maybe you have more money, but like, you know, the system they're trying to like usher in, commit a thought crime, and the DOJ will just come and seize all your Bitcoin like they do to tons of people. You know, I mean, there's certain stuff we have to stand against, or it gets bad for everybody. It doesn't matter how much Bitcoin you hold. I mean, to an extent, but you have to keep in mind too that there's major efforts to like co-opt all the on and off ramps in Bitcoin. So like even in that scenario, like if you have a lot of Bitcoin, but like you can't use it or exchange it for legal tender, you know, you'd only be able to like use it with other people that have Bitcoin, right? And so like there's a potential for that to emerge at some point, probably in certain scenarios. But as it is right now, I mean, there's an unprecedented effort by like the DOJ specifically to get like major crypto exchanges under its thumb by making them, well, I mean, the Binance thing is a good example, right? So like looking at Binance, what's happened
Yeah,
since
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. An insane amount of staff from the Department of Justice are surveilling every transaction that goes through Binance right now.
According to Whitney Webb, Bitcoin, for example, could be something. But if we let it be, these people are in charge of the steps, and other important parts of infrastructure, like Bitcoin itself, can't be changed, but they're going to do everything they can to stop it from being something that takes away a lot of their power. Some people aren't aware of how far these people are willing to go, but you shouldn't be one of them. Be like, these are people who don't want anyone to see how powerful they are, and they're used to stealing from us, and they don't plan to stop. Let's back to the interview.
And FinCEN has custodianship of the exchange for the next 5 years. They have all access to all of Binance's data, not just from the settlement forward, but all of their past data. So they can retroactively go and flag transactions, and the DOJ can be like, we're going to seize that wallet for X amount of Bitcoin and add it to, you know, the DOJ's massive Bitcoin holdings, which are among the biggest in the world. Right. So you control all of these on and off ramps and surveil all of that. Like, that is a major problem. Yeah. And I think people have to be really aware of this, like, big push to end online anonymity and financial anonymity, or like just privacy, that I've been talking about for a long time. So, like, you know, obviously, like, Bitcoin has potential to be something, but if we let these people control the on and off ramps and like other major aspects of infrastructure, like maybe Bitcoin itself is immutable, but they plan to do everything in their power to prevent it from being something that takes a big chunk of their power away. And I think people have to be like, I mean, some people are naive about how far these people will go, but you should not be. Like, these are people that do not want to cede their power to anybody, and they're very accustomed to stealing from us. And they don't plan to stop stealing, you know? So, I mean, people need to be really aware of that, and, you know, and fight to keep Bitcoin to be something that is empowering and a tool for freedom and financial freedom. Because, you know, if enough people get too googly-eyed about the value going up and, you know, yeah, pumper bags and all of this stuff, I mean, there's a lot of damage could be done. And, you know, I mean, I wish I had more like positive stuff to say about it, but I mean, it's not like the battle is lost. Like, I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is people need to be really aware that there are major efforts to co-opt. Like, maybe there's aspects of it, sure, that like can't be co-opted, but in a practical sense, like for regular people, it can be co-opted. Yeah. And there's, when you have groups like BlackRock and all this stuff trying to get in on it, that should be a red flag that like they think they can co-opt it, you know?
According to Whitney Webb, for Bitcoin to be a tool for freedom and to give people power freedom with money, because you know that if enough people get too excited about the value going up, there's a lot that could go wrong with pumper bags and all of this other stuff. Many bad things could happen. Whitney Webb could say something better about it. But the battle isn't over yet. That's not what is that people need to be very aware they put in a lot of work to co-opt, and maybe there are some parts of it that can't be co-opted in the real world. It can be co-opted by normal people. And when groups like BlackRock and others try to join in, that should be a red flag that they think they can take it over. If you learned something from this video, then please like this video and subscribe our channel Everyday Finance. And we will meet in next video. Thanks.